Monks are fun in D&D, but they're even more fun in Baldur's Gate 3 because of all the great mechanics at your disposal. In this video today, I want to showcase my Monk Warlord build by using the benefits of Open Hand Monk combined with not one, but two multi-classes. This is a pretty wild build that comes online early in the game around level 5 or 6 and only gets stronger as you go through the levels. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge in my videos. So with that being said, we'll be going 6 levels into Open Hand Monk, then 3 levels into Rogue Thief, and 3 levels into Fighter Battlemaster. Those latter 6 levels are really dealer's choice. If you want an additional bonus action first, then go Thief. If you want some really fun options to manipulate the battlefield first, then you'd take Battlemaster. This results in a hard-hitting character with a ton of actions per turn and a lot of great party damage / damage utility for you to get wild with. The nice thing about Monk too is that the gear you find in the game for them only makes them stronger, and it's easier to socket them into a party as any gear they share with someone else isn't as compulsory as most other options, like say the necklace that sets your constitution to 23. You can swap that off if you want or take it. But that's the entire gist of this video. There's more nuance to certain feat selections and items to make all this come together, but if that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to just simply shut the video down. You can also navigate to any part of the video that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. If you are headed out and you found this video helpful though, please don't forget to like, comment, and or subscribe. Any combination of those 3 helps my channel out immensely. I also have a huge BG3 playlist linked at the end of the video and below if you need help. But for those sticking around, let's get started on my Monk Warlord build in Baldur's Gate 3. Loading into the game, let's go through some character creation. Now, of course, with everything when it comes to a single player narrative game, please choose the race that makes sense for you. Don't get stuck up on whatever the internet says. Who gives a crap? You're playing the game, not them. But with that being said, I'm going to go through some of my top picks here for the Monk class that I've created. One thing I do want to talk about just real quick up front is the half-orc. Half-orc you might think is a really good one because of savage attacks, but just please keep in mind that this says when you land a critical hit with a melee weapon attack. I am not using I'm not using monk weapons for this build. You can, and if you do, savage attacks will work, but it does not work with your fists. You can download a mod that changes that, but we're not using that right now. But Relentless Endurance is also very good regardless. If you reach 0 hit points, you regain 1 hit point instead of being downed. Originally, I had built the class around this one, but I forgot that Savage Attacks only applies to melee weapon attacks. But my big pick here is Tieflings because I love Tieflings. I think they're a really fun option, especially for Monk in general. And I like the Asmodeus Tiefling because you get a lot of fun cantrips. You get Produce Flame, but then you're going to get 3 bound spells as they were. The 2 that I really like are Hellish Rebuke and Darkness. They're ones that you can actually use with the character. Mephistopheles Tieflings, their last one is Flame Blade. You'll never be able to use unless you are using a monk weapon. And the Zariel Tieflings capabilities are Branding and Searing Smite, which require weapons, and they use actions and bonus actions. So if you want, take them by all means, but this is why I like the Asmodeus Tiefling over the other ones. But other great options are like half-elves, halflings, Dragonborn especially too, because they get their breath attacks. So it's a great way to add just a whole nother type of elemental damage into the build. Very fun, regardless of what you take. Into our class, starting off, it is going to be Monk. We're going to take all first 6 levels into Monk, and with that, we'll talk about some class features here too. We have, of course, the Flurry of Blows, which is going to be our bonus action to add just a little bit of damage. But one important thing here with Monk is the unarmored defense, right? So with Monk's unarmored defense, we're going to get our dexterity modifier and our wisdom modifier thrown into our armor class. That's going to be crucial because we're going to focus on wisdom with this class. I'm not doing a tavern brawler monk build. If you want that, you would just swap in the strength, but I think everyone does those and they're just pretty boring and they trivialize the game in my opinion because they're just so fucking strong. You get dexterous attacks using your dexterity instead of your strength, and deft strikes here to deal an additional bludgeoning damage with monk weapons. And lastly, bonus unarmed strike. So after you deal damage with a monk weapon or while unarmed, you make an additional unarmed attack as a bonus action. So lots of really fun stuff just right out the gate with the monk. For your background, like I always say, please kind of make a little role play for your character. Is this a street urchin that kind of comes around and becomes a monk? You know, a former criminal? Are you a former soldier that has abandoned the ways of weapons after suffering through countless wars? Are you a learned sage who has part jumped into the kind of way of the open hand, discovered that for themselves. Are you a folk hero? Whatever it is, figure a background out that makes sense for the character that you are building. It really makes it a lot more fun to jump through the game. If you want to min-max the option, like I always say, I like Guild Artisan because this gives me both insight and persuasion, both of which help out a ton in a lot of the conversations. Persuasion, of course, being the paramount one amongst the two. And also, too, we have our skill options here. This is going to depend on what you take. If you go with like a drow, you'll get access to perception. I think also elf gets that in general, too. But I like just something like athletics or acrobatics can be great, just to be able to resist or deal with any kind of shoves that the AI will do to you. And if you're playing in honor mode, that will be quite a bit. So you can see here, land on your feet helps you resist being shoved, versus athletics helps you shove and resist being shoved. So this is just kind of up to you. If you plan on doing a lot of shoves, which I would not recommend because you have so many other bonus actions you can do, this is just a great way to resist being shoved instead. But you can choose like religion if you want, or history if you want. Whatever makes sense here. We're already going to have persuasion turned on because of our background. Now let's talk about our ability scores. With this build, I'm going to focus predominantly on wisdom and then secondarily on our, what's that thing called? Dexterity. So I'm going to drop all 15, well, bring this up to 15. I'm going to put a +2 here. And I'm going to hope to get the Hag's Hair, which is as non-spoiler of a way as I can say to recommend an item that you can get in the game, which would put you up to 18 wisdom in Act 1. It's a very good starting position. Then I'm going to bring this up to 16. God, that music is bumping right now. And that brings us to that gives us a number of things. Our initiative gets a +3 to the roll. Our dexterity and wisdom together are going to give us a +3 and then a +3 to our armor class. As long as we're not wearing armor as a monk, it's going to be crucial. Then Constitution, we're going to bring up here to 14. And we've got 2 points left over. You can hang out with this. I'd probably put it into Charisma, especially if this is your face character, your front-facing character, so you don't have any penalties to any Charisma rolls. That, I think, is absolutely crucial here. You can put it into Strength if you want for carry capacity, but we're not using Strength in any way, shape, or form. And I think it's completely wasted on Intelligence. So that's my go-to pick here for your abilities. Let's go into a level progression now. I'm going to switch over to a Wood Elf, just so it's not jarring for you. My Wood Elf is my max level character. Nice thing about the progression for this character is it's very straightforward, and then we're not going to have to go through a bunch of spells. So for level 2 with Monk, we're going to get access to Patient Defense here. Attack rolls against you have disadvantage, and you have advantage on Dex saving throws, Step of the Wind Dash, and Step of the Wind Disengage. All 3 things helping you to create a lot of fun with your bonus actions. This is going to be the theme for the character. You're going to have a lot of ways to manipulate the battlefield or get out of situations or do things. We're going to see this come out more and more. So we're going to go ahead and accept this. And jump into level 3 with Monk, which is going to give us Deflect Missile, which will eventually allow us to reflect that missile. And our subclass is going to go with Way of the Open Hand. This gives us even more bonus actions. So Flurry of Blows now has the ability to either stagger, push, or topple. Topple is what I'd recommend because knocking things prone is huge, because if you knock something prone and attack them, you have advantage. Attacks against a prone creature have advantage if they're made within 10 feet of the creature. A prone creature must spend half its movement speed to stand up. We're going to have lots of ways to inflict prone. Is that what I want to say? Yeah, I guess. We're going to a lot of ways to knock people on their ass. Into level 4 here, we're going to get access to Slow Fall. So when you fall, you can use your reaction to gain resistance to falling damage. Who cares? But we now get our first feat, our first and only feat. You have a lot of feat options at your disposal, but really, truly, the only one that really matters, I think, is ability improvement wisdom. You have so many ways to add your wisdom score into your damage profile. There are so many things that are going to help with that spellcasting modifier to add into it. A lot of people like to think of Arcane Acuity, I think it is. Whichever one adds your spellcasting modifier to your weapon attack roll. If you're using a monk weapon, that can be really good. So even further, you're using your wisdom, which is considered your spellcasting modifier for a monk. So wisdom is going to be our big thing here. If you want to go Tavern Brawler, you would do it now. This is when you would go to Tavern Brawler. You'd probably reroll the character and just focus on strength, or you could probably keep the character as is and go just start taking elixirs. I don't really think there's any other way you can go with this character. It's how I've built them in my mind. If you have recommendations, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below, but this is pretty crucial. The only other one I could think of would be Alert, just to get more initiative, and you can't be surprised, so you're pretty much always going first, but we're going to stack up our wisdom. Moving on, though, we're going to get our 5th level into Monk, which is going to give us access to extra attack, which is a huge power spike, and we get access to both Stunning Strike, melee, and unarmed. Well, obviously, we're going with unarmed here, but this allows us to stun targets. So now we can prone, stun, stagger, tons of different status effects that we can dish out. We're going to take one more level here into Monk, and that is going to give us key-powered strikes, which is awesome, right? So we overcome resistances and immunities to non-magical damage. So if something has an immunity to slashing, bludgeoning, whatever, we can bypass it. And we can also turn our damage into having a little bit more fun with it. So now your unarmed attacks deal an additional 5 to 8 necrotic, psychic, or radiant damage, which you can layer in a ton of different ways. You can do the manifestation of soul and use all the radiant equipment in the game and make your character completely disgusting at level 6. And that's all the stuff that's in Act 1. You can get all of it. I did not take that direction because I've already made a build that way. I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the upper right hand corner to my light monk build. You can go ahead and use that if you want. I just didn't want to repeat a lot of the same information. We also have wholeness of body, which is a heal. It's okay. We don't really need to worry about it too much, but it is there. It's cool. It's nice and spiffy. So once we accept this, we're going to come into a crossroads. You can choose, do you want more bonus actions? Then you're going to go with your rogue. We're going to bring this to level 3, and we're going to go with thief. That's going to grant us an additional bonus action. Or do you want to add more things that you can do on the battlefield that to benefit the character? You're going to do fighter into battle master now. It is entirely up to you. There's no wrong way to do this. I think if I'm thinking purely min-maxi, probably rogue first, because that gives me an additional bonus action, and the open hand monk is stuffed with bonus actions. The caveat here is that if you went with fighter first, you get an extra main action. So you really can't go wrong either way. Choose whatever makes sense for you. I'm just going to choose rogue because that's how I have it set up in my build planner, linked in the description below. So you can see we're going to go here. We're going to get access to sneak attack, which you can take advantage of if you want, but sneak attack is only going to become a +2 d6 at the max levels we get. Every odd level, it will go up. Also, your proficiencies you're going to get access to. So if you don't have a character that's picking locks, this character can actually pick the locks for you. And I think that's really cool, but you also can increase your proficiency and gain you can increase your expertise and gain proficiency in any of the conversation skills you didn't have before. So maybe we have persuasion now, and that one's up because this character didn't have persuasion initially. Or maybe we now put on investigation. Whatever it is, feel free to take advantage of these advantages. Oh, that's a bunch of weird sentences. Feel free to take advantage of all of these really cool expertise and capabilities that you can do. One more level here into Rogue. It gets us access to more bonus actions for cunning action, dash, hide, and disengage. You kind of already have these as a monk, so they're pretty wasted, but it's nice nonetheless that you can just cunning action go into hide. And then with Thief, we get that extra bonus action here with Fast Hands. And you've mastered the art of falling and gain resistance to falling damage. We don't really care about it, but it's there nonetheless. So that squares off the Thief route. If you were to go with Fighter first, you would do these 4 levels instead. Or these 3 levels instead. Now, about our fighting style, none of these are really going to benefit us. You can put it into defense. It's probably the easiest one, but you need to have armor to turn this on. Originally, I thought just go protection, but you have to have a shield to get this to work. If you want to use a monk weapon, then go ahead and choose whatever one of these makes sense. Maybe archery makes the most sense because you can use this. You can shoot a ranged weapon. I don't know. None of these are really are gonna fit with the character. So just choose one. It's not going to matter unless you have a separate way you want to approach this. As I always say with my build guides, use the guide to guide and inspire you and less to be a dogmatic way to approach the game. Jumping into level 2, we're going to get access to Action Surge, which is a huge capability to give us just a whole nother round of primary action. But level 3 here, we now get to select our subclass, which is of course going to be Battle Master. You can go with Champion if you want, just to get a flat bonus to your crit, but I'm not going that route. We're going to go with the maneuvers. And with the maneuvers, almost all of them require a melee or range weapon of some sort. There are 3 that don't. Well, there's 4 that don't. And we're only going to take 3 of them. Commander Strike here. Direct an ally to strike a foe. The ally uses a reaction on their next turn to make a weapon attack. So the ally does, not you. So you get to do this. It's a great way to... It does cost you an action and a bonus action to do, but it's just a great way to give, like, hey, you know what? I'm just so far away, but I'm close enough to an ally to give them another chance, another go at something. I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's a great way to just kind of give someone a little bit more punching power. Maybe it's a barbarian, maybe it's just another character, a Gloomstalker Ranger, whatever it is. Gives them a lot more capabilities. The other one that I like is evasive footwork. You can use a superiority die to give enemies disadvantage on melee attacks against you. And what I like about this too is it doesn't pull from your fighting capability. We're not using maneuvers to do damage. We're using maneuvers to help the team out or to help you return damage, whatever the situation is. This doesn't cut down from your fighting capabilities, like say maybe something that would use a spell slot on a Bardidim. Well, now you've lost that spell slot, which could have been used for a smite. I really like this because the superiority die are, we only get, I think, 3 or 4. We can just kind of toss them to the wind. The last one is Riposte. So this armor gives us a greater Kushigo counter, which allows whenever an enemy misses us, we get to hit back with our fists. Well, Riposte allows us to do, when a hostile creature misses you with a melee attack, expend a superiority die to retaliate with a powerful strike that deals an additional 1d8. On this tooltip, it doesn't say with a weapon attack. When I accept this, it will say in the actual game with weapon attack. Don't worry, you do not need a weapon for Riposte. You can use your fists. The nice thing too is that it's going to be able to use my fists plus an additional 1d8. It's a great way to weaponize our reactions so that we're doing quite a bit of damage here. Just to kind of show you, this says right here, it deals an additional 1d8 damage if you are wielding a melee weapon. Don't worry, you do not need to actually have a melee weapon to have this working. So now we've seen all these elements, let's talk about some gear. So before we jump into the items that I do have, in my typical fashion, I want to talk about the 2 items that I don't have. The armor of uninhibited Kushigo is first. Really the Kushigo armor, it's a set you're going to get in Act 1 and concludes, I think actually concludes in Act 3. Well, the transition point from Act 2 to Act 3 is when you're going to get the boots of uninhibited Kushigo. But the armor here gives us Kushigo counter, so while patient defense is active, the wearer can use their reaction to make an unarmed strike against any attacker that misses. This becomes better with the armor we're wearing right now, but at the beginning of the game, it's a nice thing. Unfortunately, I don't use patient defense that much, but if you do use it strategically, you'll get a free attack out of it if you use it properly. Lastly, we have the armor, or the hat of uninhibited Kushigo. After dealing damage with an unarmed attack, the wearer gains +1 bonus to their spell save DC until the end of their turn. Not as huge, clearly, right? I just like the whole entire set. It really is very monk-y, quote unquote. So I encourage you to just use this set until you get some of the better items throughout Act 2 and Act 3. Well, now we don't need to talk about weapons. We can just jump right into the armor. As I've said before, the nice thing about Monk is that you can use anything at any point. Just simply put it onto the character. It's not going to matter. Of course, just make sure it's not armor. That's, of course, going to be the big thing. So right now, our armor class is at 21 with our dexterity, our wisdom, and our vest on. So we have quite a bit of AC coming into the latter portions of the game, but you're probably going to have a little bit less than that as you kind of march up. To start off with our helmet piece, the go-to one to wear, I'm just wearing this because it's a cool looking one for the video, is going to be the Mask of Soul Perception. I dyed this all bloody plum, and that mask looks holy crap. So the Mask of Soul Perception here, you gain a +2 bonus to attack rolls, initiative rolls, and perception checks. It's just so good for the character. Other really good masks you can get are stuff like the Fist Breaker Helm at the very beginning in Act 2. You gain a +1 bonus to your initiative rolls. We don't really care about the spell save DC. But pretty much any helmet that you want to use that is not an armor piece is going to be just fine for this character. There's all the diadems, all the sorts of ones that you can use, hats, everything. Another cool one too is the Helldusk helmet you'll get in Act 3. You can see in magical and ordinary darkness up to a range of 40 feet, and you cannot be blinded. That's the biggest benefit of this, is you cannot be blinded. I absolutely love that. The wielder also has a bonus to saving throws against spells, also just great for your defense in general. And attacks cannot be critical hit. A crit hit can hit you. You also will get Immolating Gaze, which is just a really cool ranged ability to give you a little bit of fire damage. It's not going to be huge, but you get it nonetheless. And another good Act 2 item you can get are the Horns of the Berserker. You gain a +2 bonus to attack rolls when attacking creatures that have already taken damage, which is going to be the majority of them. And your unarmed and melee attacks will deal an extra 2 necrotic damage as long as you don't have full health. If you don't have any damage this turn, you take 1 to 4 necrotic damage. So this will make sure you pretty much always have necrotic damage online from this that secondary effect. Now for our glove piece, the best one, the best in slot, the BIS, is Gloves of Soul Catching. Your unarmed attacks deal an additional 1 to 10 force damage, the least resisted damage in the game. And once per turn on an unarmed hit, you can regain 10 hit points. Alternatively, you may forego healing to gain an advantage on attack rolls and saving throws until the end of your turn. The nice thing too is that this gives us 2 Constitution. So we're going to have 16 Constitution with this on and not the Constitution necklace, which is absolutely aces. Some other really good hand pieces you can use are the Flawed Helldust Gloves. They look like plate armor, but they are not armor. Your weapon attacks deal an additional 1 to 4 fire damage, and your unarmed attacks deal 1 to 4 necrotic and can possibly inflict bleeding, and strength saves +1. The Gauntlet, oh damn it, I don't know why I thought those were not armor, but they're armor, never mind. The Bracers of Defense you're going to get in Act 1. Also, you'll get these in the beginning of Act 2 if you save the Emerald Grove. Bracers of Defense you'll get in Act 1. You gain a +2 bonus to armor class as long as you are not wearing armor or holding a shield. You'll use this for the majority of the game until you get a damage bonus gloves. In Act 3, you have the Helldust Gloves. You gain a +1 bonus to spell attack rolls and spell save DC. Again, we don't care about that. But your unarmed attacks deal an additional 1 to 6 necrotic and can possibly inflict bleeding. You also get Rays of Fire, just another free cantrip to use. So free fun things that you can use in conjunction with these 2 items, and they're a part of a set. They just look kind of cool together. For our back piece, I'm using the Cloak of Displacement. Probably you're going to want to go with the Cloak of Defense, but I really like this one because it gives us just a fun thing to have online. At the beginning of the wearer's turn, the cloak activates, granting enemies disadvantage. You basically have blur on attack rolls that target the wearer. This effect lasts until the wearer takes damage. It's just, I wanted to choose something this is the one everyone always chooses. It's Cloak of Protection. There's so many other classes that use Cloak of Protection though, so I wanted to use something different. That's why I went with the Cloak of Displacement. If you're going with a evil playthrough, you can get if you're going with a Dark Urge playthrough, you can use the cloak from that. Flesh Melter Cloak, though, is also nice. Whenever a creature deals melee damage to the wearer, the creature takes 1 to 4 acid damage. So it's a way to get reactive damage onto creatures. It's pretty cool. Our best in-slot chest piece is going to be the Vest of Soul Rejuvenation. Whenever the wearer succeeds on a saving throw against a spell, they regain 1 to 4 hit points. So just free healing as long as we resist. And you resist so easily, right? Like, ooh, actually we don't. I forgot. It's that evasion is at level 7 that you get, where pretty much every spell is resistible for a monk. Well, at least dodgeable. Either way, though, it's a great way to get some passive healing. Also, armor class is increased by 2, which is lovely, and greater Kushigo counter. So the wearer can use a reaction to make an unarmed strike against any attack that misses. We talked about this earlier, but just to reiterate. Other chest pieces, just use any robes you find. The ones you find, the Poisoner's Robe in the very beginning of Act 1, when the wearer casts a spell, that deals poison damage, it deals more. We don't ever going to use this, but they're just robes you use until you get the Armor of Uninhibited Kushigo. There's the Bided Time, there's the Ice Bite Robe, there's the Robe of Summer, there's the armor that increases your dexterity when you put it on. I think it's called the Graceful Cloth, which you'll get in Act 1 as well. That's a really, really great option because it sets your dexterity to like 20, basically. You can go with that. You can use pretty much just whatever cloth chest piece you want. That just gives you any kind of benefits you want to go off of. Another one to kind of consider too is using any kind of benefit to lightning charges. Lightning charges are a really cool thing to manipulate in the game because they increase your chance to hit stuff. I think I forgot to look at I didn't put them on here, I don't think. You know the worst part about having a stash like this is it just gets out of control. Like this is ridiculous. There they are. The Sparkle Hands are also a really good glove piece, which I forgot to talk about, which you'll get in Act 1. These on a hit with an unarmed attack, the wearer gains 2 lightning charges. And these lightning charges, you have a +1 to attack roll. So basically having these on is a +2 to attack roll every time you hit with an armed strike. They're very good for the beginning of the game. You'll use them throughout the majority of the game if you just jump onto those. Other armor pieces or other pieces that we've got in this character are our boots. So the boots that we're gonna get that we want to use, there's no option outside of it really, is the Boots of Uninhibited Kushigo, because the wearer deals an additional damage equal to their wisdom modifier with unarmed strikes. Come on, Karlak, I know you're near naked. I pull all your armor off for this video. So this is going to give us an additional +5 to all of our unarmed attacks. That's absolutely huge. absolutely huge. You're going to get this in the transition point between Act 2 to 3. You can't miss it. Don't want to spoil anything, but if you played the game, you know what I'm talking about. So if that happens, you'll be able to get those, and they're going to be great. Other items you can use up until then, though, are stuff like the Disintegrating Night Stalker, so you can't be enwebbed, entangled, and snared, and you cannot slip on grease or ice, and it gives you Misty Step for some good mobility. But even stuff like Linebacker Boots. When you dash, you now get Wrath. Okay, Linebreaker Boots. Cool, gives you a little bit more damage. At the end of the game, you can use the Helldusk Boots if you get these in Act 3 if you really want to, but I think the Uninhibited Kushiko is just the way to go. For our jewelry, really just use whatever fits the character that or whatever you're trying to jump into. Like if you want to do more critical hit damage and you don't have anyone that's using Killer Sweetheart, use the Killer Sweetheart. It's guaranteed critical hit. If you want to pull more health into the character, use Ring of Regeneration. Early mobility in Act 1 is Crusher's Ring, plus 10 feet. This one is absolutely great to use because it's a really good one to just extend that movement capability. Even the Coruscation Ring here is great because you can use it with your ability to turn your attacks, press our passives, into radiant damage, right? So you can just use this to stack up a ton of radiant capabilities. And we also have the Ring of Free Action because we don't have enough monk levels to turn on the ignoring of difficult terrain like you would have naturally through monk. This allows us to do that. So this is a good one that you can use. For our necklace, I really like Khalid's Gift because this gives us +1 wisdom, assuming maybe you didn't get a certain person's hair. So you can have access to just a free +1 wisdom, bringing us up to 20 wisdom for the character. Very, very good. Other ones, though, of course, are the Sentient Amulet, which is really the monk amulet, because this allows us to do a key restoration, and we get a Shatter, free cast of Shatter, which is always lovely. Other good ones, though, are the Amulet of the Harpers for advantage on wisdom saving throws, which you'll probably succeed. And you get Shield, and also the Amulet of Greater Health. But like I've said before, this is something that is going to be a highly contested necklace item. So you can swap out and use whatever items make sense for the character since it's not so gear dependent. I think the only item you absolutely need with this build is these, just because it layers in so much more additional damage. The rest is, and that's like a purely monk only weapon or item at that point anyway, right? So pretty much everything is just kind of, okay, this isn't going to be used on that character, I'll use it here on this character. It's a real nice one that you can benefit from. Also too, if you don't have any range characters, you can put the Deadshot on this character and it will give them a +1 to their critical hit, so that rather than hitting on a 20, they'll do it on a 19 instead. So jumping into combat, we can have some fun here, right? We have tons of stuff at our disposal too. Let's go ahead and take a look at one of our passives. If we can turn on any one of these, so we can do some radiant damage, some psychic damage, some necrotic damage, whatever one's going to make sense for the character. Maybe you've got a specific stack, like I've said before, with that radiant damage. Also too, maybe you're looking at a specific creature you're attacking and they've got a resistance to the radiant, or resistance to the necrotic, or resistance to the psychic. You can pivot those around, whatever is going to make sense. Also, too, we have our superiority abilities here, so I could go ahead and use this to help Gale go ahead and take another turn right now. Well, help him do a little bit more damage, right? The ally uses a reaction on their next turn to make a weapon attack, and he hasn't gone yet, so I can have him go. Or I can use this right now, too. And notice something about this. I'm going to click it. It did not use any of our action or bonus action, which is really, really cool. And on top of it now, we're just a monk, and monks are so strong. Unfortunately, we didn't go deep enough into monk to get the resonating strike, which is just disgustingly strong, but we still can have quite a bit of fun here. So let's go over here, stun this character, and critically miss, of course, because why wouldn't I do that in the middle of a video? Because that would be so cool for everyone to see. But we'll do it again. Looks like they're going to hit. We've got that goes off. We can go ahead and use our bonus action to stagger her. No. Just so much damage right there, right? We did 16, 9, and 13, and 17, and 13, and 11. So much damage. It killed her. It killed her. Killed her dead. And we still have plenty more to do. Keep in mind, I did use a haste potion, so I got an extra action right now. But all of what I've just done, for the most part, has been bonus actions. So we can still have a lot more fun, right? So we can go over here. We can knock this. We can topple this person. Just do it. I wasted that, but still. And you can see that just did 14 and 6 and 2 and 17 and 12 and 18, and they're dead. And we still have another primary action we can use to come over here and Stunning Strike. Or I can use Soul Snare Heal which was from our armor capabilities. We have so much stuff that we can take advantage of. Let's go ahead and actually place myself. This person's going to go over there. Let me put myself right here. And even though I can do some stuff, I'm going to use Action Surge. Oh, we're already out of our bonus actions. I was going to use Action Surge to use Commander Strike just to show it off. But I'm actually going to end the turn because I want to see what happens if people shoot us. Okay, so Gale is also a monk. So let's assume that this hit me. I could use Deflect Missile here, and then I could deflect it back if that were to hit me instead. But of course, it hit Gale. And Gale's going to take his turn. We're going to skip that, though. I'm still right over here. They're going to try to do stuff to me. Uh-oh. So now we can get a Kushigo counter right there and just keep having a lot of fun. Like, keep trying to chain things together. Remember, you only get one reaction per turn, though, so that is going to limit a lot of stuff. And that you cannot do that just infinitely, right? But we can still just go to town. Unfortunately, we don't have the Resonating Blast, where we would just completely destroy this whole group of people. But you can see that this class has so much going for it, right? We can go ahead and help this person go do more damage. That's going to take a lot of resources, but you'll notice too that still triggered an extra attack. So we can go right here, do some damage there. We still have our bonus attacks. There's just so much stuff that you can do. And I thought this would be a really fun monk build that's different from the typical tavern brawler. It's It's different from the typical 9 open hand monk, then 3 whatever else, right? You can do 9 open hand monk, 3 light cleric, 3 fighter, 3 rogue. I wanted to just kind of have a little bit more fun with this kit by bringing in a lot of functionality from the battle maneuvers. Unfortunately, you can't dip into a ton of fun stuff with battle maneuvers because so much of it is limited by the fact that we're not using a weapon. But if you want to see a build where we use monk weapons, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. I can definitely figure something fun out. But this is a cool build nonetheless. So let me know in the comment section how you're feeling about this, how you might change it, and some other things. I am working on an Arcane Archer build, but I'm debating, do you guys want to see an Arcane Archer build where it's just an Arcane Archer in the game vanilla, or do you want me to use the Arcane Archer mod? One would pretty much be a hunter fighter. The other one would be using the mod for the Arcane Archer. So go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.